Welcome back to our channel. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your continued support. The road to 2027, as I always say, is becoming very rugged and very rough. And 2027 election is too far yet too close. One thing that is very clear is that there are political formations and realignments that have just started. The other thing that we must take into account is that as people head to 2027, Rigathi Gachagua has told people that he made a mistake by joining William Ruto without a vehicle. Political parties are vehicles that people drive or ascend to as they head to powerful positions. Rigathi said that when Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula and the Speaker of the Senate was signing and making sure that they had their ratio written down in terms of the shareholding, he trusted William Ruto so much that he went there blindly. So he's saying anyone who is still building his political career must ensure that you have a party. Now, there's been this argument that all these political parties are tribal, that you can trace their roots to particular regions, and in fact, when you get further to particular homes. ODM is a national party. That one, I think in terms of the nationality, the national outlook, you must give it to ODM. But when you narrow it down, you realize that you can get its roots from Nyanza. And when you narrow it even further, you realize that you can trace the roots to the Odinga family. Wetangula, Ford Kenya, you trace it to Bungoma, and then you trace it directly to the home of Moses Wetangula, even though Ford Kenya started all the way sometimes back by Oginga Odinga. Wiper is a party of the Kamba people. And even though it has got some taste of national outlook, you can trace it to Cumberland and into the house of Kalonzo Musyoka. UDA, that brags to be a national party, has got the greatest challenge. In fact, people are even wondering whether William Ruto is still going to ride on UDA, because now that the Mount Kenya fraternity has gone, Ruto has been left a shell with the Kalenjin MPs as the only members, of course with a few here and there from other regions. But you can trace the UDA from Rift Valley, and you get into the house of the former chief hustler himself, William Samoei Ruto. So these parties, in fact, every big family in Kenya wants to have a political party. The Moi family is still trying to pick up the ashes of Kanu. Odinga family, ODM. Ruto, the recent entry into the field of dynasty, the UDA, Kalonzo, all that. Now, people are trying to say that, parties should never be looked at as being tribal. But the member of Nakuru Town West MP, Samuel Arama, is saying that it is high time we speak the truth, that all these parties that you see are tribal. In fact, he is urging Fred Matiang'i to ride on a Kisii ticket, because that is exactly what we play, tribal politics. And he's saying, don't use euphemism. We are tribal when it comes to elections.
Hakuna chama ya ukabila Kenya hii. Wacha nikuambie nani? Hakuna chama ya ukabila. UDA ni ya wakina nani? Apart from me wakikuyu waliingia UDA, nani ajue UDA ni ya Wakalenjin? Nani ajue? Wakalenjin si sahi, Wakalenjin wote si wanasema hata kama imekuwa mbaya wanasema mtu yako hapo. Si hiyo ni ukabila? Kweli. Ukabila Kenya hii haiwezi kuisha. Saa hii watu wanataka kusema ati Rigiji amezundua chama ya ukabila. ODM ni ya nani? Si ya Raila. Raila ni ya Baba. Baba si Wajaruo ndio wanakuwa hapo kila siku. Hata hapa Nakuru Town West Wajaruo kila siku wakienda pale wanapiga, wanasema chama yao ni ODM. Ukienda ya UDA ilikuwa ni ya Wakale, yeye ameleta ya Wakikuyu. Jubilee ilikuwa ya Wakikuyu. So amefanya makosa gani? Hata sisi Wakisii tunaleta yetu UPA. Letu hapo tuweke hapo ikue. Hata sisi tunaleta Matiang'i. Unajua wacha niwaambie. Tukubaliane hivi. Siasa ya Kenya ya huku president imeenda ukabila. Kila kabila anataka mtu yake afanye nini? Akae juu. Sasa hatuwezi kukaa sisi, enda angalia appointments zile zimefanywa wakati ya Jubilee. Wakati ya Jubilee appointments zilikuwa zinafanywa ni watu wale walikuwa wanapata viti.
Ni challenge na Kikuyu.
Hapana, ni Wakikuyu.
Kwa wengi.
Wengi walikuwa wanapata ni Wakikuyu. President akikuwa lazima viti iende hiyo sehemu. Saa hii wakati William ameingia naye ameanza kuweka wakati nchini akitoa Wakikuyu na makabila mengine. Hata saa hii Matiang'i akiingia tuna expect Andre kutoa watu wengine pia na sisi tu Wakisii pia wapate. Hiyo ndio ukweli. Na uwezi kuunda serikali na kabila moja peka yake saa hii. Lazima mshikane na kabila nyingine. Na hiyo ndio Moi alisema, mkirete majama mingi ukabila itashuka Kenya. Mkasema yeye ajui. Si ukabila imekuwa ukiongea UDA watu wanasema ni Wakale. ODM ni Mjaruo. Ukiongea Jubilee Mkikuyu. Ukiongea Wiper Mkamba. Ukiongea hiyo ANC wanasema Mluya. So tutafanya nini? Hii nchi tukiendelea namna hii, lakini tukiwajiria pia watu waanze kukua.
In his bid to look like he's a nationalist, Fred Matiang'i decided not to run on a Kisii party, but to run on a UDA party ticket. And some people feel that he risks carrying the burden of being a project, Uhuru project. But others are saying that it is good to ride on a party that does not come from your tribe, because people will look at you as a nationalist. But ladies and gentlemen, there is still trouble because there is pressure. Rigathi Gachagua has got a party, Democracy for the Citizens Party. And Rigathi has made it clear that Fred Matiang'i must go and look for votes from Kisii, then they sit on the table. Rigathi wants the mountain votes to be left for him. Now there's been some discussions about that formation and who exactly Wamuchomba is supporting. Because when Rigathi was launching his party, one very conspicuous figure who was not there was Wamuchomba. And then she treated us to some cool photos, chilling somewhere with Fred Matiang'i and Charity Ngilu. And she left a lot of speculations. Is she supporting Rigathi Gachagua or she's supporting Fred Matiang'i? Because prior to the launch, by the way, it is unveiling the party, not launching. I understand that Rigathi will launch this party sometimes later. Before the unveiling of the DC party, Wamuchomba had said that Rigathi is still playing local politics. He needs to now expand his territory, go and start looking for votes elsewhere. In other words, she was trying to echo the words of those who are opposing Rigathi Gachagua. So there's been, some speculations. But today, Wamuchomba made it clear that indeed she is supporting Fred Matiang'i. She has made it clear that prior to 2027, even as Kalonzo, Gachagua, Martha Karua, Fred Matiang'i, and all those political opposition leaders will be sitting down to look for someone to be the flag bearer, Wamuchomba has made it clear that there's no speculation anymore. She has said that she is supporting Fred Matiang'i. I want us to look at that. But there's another twist. After the former Senator Roba was expelled from the UDA party because of her association with Fred Matiang'i, the current Kisii Senator, Richard Onyonka, is also confirming that he supports Fred Matiang'i, but is in ODM. In fact, the very, very reasons that made UDA to expel Oroba, Onyonka is now saying that I'm in ODM, and if they want, they can expel me. Because he's wondering why the UDA is taking that drastic action, yet he was seen with Fred Matiang'i, and the ODM has not done anything. In that very meeting, the ODM deputy party leader Simba Arati, the current Kisii governor, was also there, even though later he was inviting Fred Matiang'i to come to ODM. Ladies and gentlemen, I want us to look at Wamuchomba and Richard Onyonka, because there's something that I want us to look at closely. I want us to watch this, but allow me to request you, as always, to subscribe to our channel if you're watching for the first time, or you are our regular viewers but you have not yet subscribed. Please hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell. Also like and share our videos. Thank you for your continued support. Have a look at this.
Honorable Wamuchomba.
Yeah.
If Gloria is being punished for having been seen with Matiang'i and campaigning with him, why haven't I been punished by ODM? Yeah, I support Matiang'i right now. I'm in ODM. Why the double standard?
Hata mimi na support Matiang'i.
Yeah.
I'm supporting Matiang'i.
So what is the problem?
I'm supporting Matiang'i 100%. Hata nimemweka kwa page zangu, nimemweka kila pahali because he's my personal friend. By the way, he's not from my community, but I'm supporting because he's my personal friend. Even when he was in Jubilee, he was my friend. When he was a cabinet minister, he was my friend. When he was at the University of Nairobi, I am an alumni of the same university. We were friends.
Now I want us to begin with Onyonka. Onyonka is really placing Raila Odinga in a very tight corner. He's daring the ODM. He has made it clear that I am supporting Fred Matiang'i, which means he could be supporting Jubilee or supporting this party from Kisii. Because if there is one person who has been standing in for Matiang'i, even when he was still away, and was saying that Fred has sent me, even when Martha Karua was launching the People's Liberation Party, Onyonka was there and he was saying, I'm representing Fred Matiang'i. In other words, he has gone. His ideas, his thoughts, his feelings are with Fred Matiang'i, and Fred is not in ODM. Now, what is the risk here? You know, Raila cannot begin another war by trying to expel Onyonka. Number one, because if he decides to do that, then he will start with Simba Arati, who was also there. And if he decides to open a Pandora's box, if he decides to begin another fight in an already volatile party, where people like the Saboti MP Caleb Amisi, where Edwin Sifuna is saying, yes, we got into an agreement with William Ruto, but according to the scorecard that I have, William Ruto has failed. In a party that is divided, they don't know whether they're in government or not. The other day, Alice Wahome called them to order. If he begins that war now, it will break that party into pieces. So Raila is really in a tight corner. He has to live with the fact that there are people who are in ODM, yet they've already declared their support to another candidate. Remember, ODM has declared that they will have a presidential candidate. Most likely, people feel that will be Raila Odinga. Yet a member of the Senate who was elected on an ODM ticket is now daring them, telling them, I'm in ODM, but I'm supporting someone else. So that makes it very difficult for Raila Odinga. When William Ruto picked the first ODM members who went there, who are named rebels, they tried to expel them from the party. But the registrar of political parties and the courts declined. So now, there is no difference between what people like Jalango were doing, taking photos with Ruto, and what Onyonka is doing now. So, if Raila does not act, it will be seen like he's now a coward, or he's applying double standards. If he acts, he will be seen as someone who's undemocratic, because he has always said that he practices democracy in that party. So we wait and see what exactly will happen. Because the truth is, there are members of parliament who are really very uncomfortable because of Raila's move to join William Ruto. Now, as for Gathoni Wamuchomba, she has complicated the arithmetic for Rigathi Gachagua. Not that that is so serious, because if you look at Gathoni Wamuchomba, she is aligning herself to Uhuru Kenyatta. She's been there with Uhuru. In fact, I remember in 2022, she was the first member of parliament to ditch Uhuru Kenyatta. And in 2024, the first member of parliament to ditch William Ruto. And I think she regrets moving away from Uhuru Kenyatta because some of the challenges that they are facing as a community emanated as a result of defying and rejecting Uhuru's advice. Now, when Rigathi Gachagua was being impeached, Gathoni Wamuchomba could not hold back her tears. She really cried. And people don't understand how there was a sudden change. And I can only link it or associate it to Uhuru's move. Kiambu basically is not going to be very easy with Rigathi Gachagua, especially leaders. But I understand from credible sources that Wamunyoro has taken over the mountain. Yesterday, I saw Eric Wamumbi trying to gather some crowd to counter Uhuru's crowd, to counter Rigathi's crowd. But I understand, what if Rigathi had also shown up? I just want to ask you. Eric Wamumbi went to the streets himself and was rallying some people and trying to counter Rigathi Gachagua. Can you imagine if Rigathi had gone to the streets himself and now he says, let us now lock horns. Wamumbi, if you are man enough, let my supporters and your supporters. Do you think Eric Wamumbi would have been around? So Rigathi has taken over. In fact, even the Madeira member of parliament, Eric Wamumbi, has declared that he is not going to defend his seat, meaning that place is hot. And as we speak, I understand that Rigathi Gachagua already has a list. People are thronging into Wamunyoro, those who want particular seats from the MCA all the way to the governorship, because gubernatorial positions, because Wamunyoro ndio wa kusema. That is what's happening even in Luo-Nyanza. Ukitaka kusimama, unaanza mapema. Unajuana na baba, because it reaches a point where tickets are given in terms of fidelity to the party. So people are swearing their allegiance early enough. Do you think Gathoni refusing to support Rigathi Gachagua means a lot? Do you think it means maybe that Gachagua is still going to find it difficult to unite all the leaders? If you ask me, if leaders don't want to be united, they will be forced to unite behind Rigathi Gachagua by the people. And so Rigathi is not going to struggle so much to force leaders behind him. What Rigathi is going to do is that ameshika watu hapa chini. He says, I listen to the ground. I always listen to the ground. Ground ikishikana, everyone is going to come to Wamunyoro. You remember how Anne Waiguru tried to hold on behind Uhuru Kenyatta? Because Uhuru made her. Uhuru is the one who made Anne Waiguru known. There was a time Anne was trending in the devolution ministry. And that is how, by the time she was being accused of embezzling funds in that docket, she had already become a force to reckon with. And that's how she went and won the gubernatorial seat. At the very last moment, she had to defect because the ground was boiling. That is exactly what is going to happen. There are leaders who still pretend that, they don't support Rigathi, but a time is coming when wananchi will force them. So if people are still speculating, you are wondering what was Gathoni Wamuchomba doing with Fred Matiang'i or with Ngilu, then you can take it to the bank that she has now declared her support for Frederick Matiang'i. There are speculations that Fred Matiang'i could pick Ngilu as his running mate. I don't know whether that will be the right move because Kalonzo has a lock to Kambani. And I think they're targeting the mere fact that if Fred decides that he's not supporting anyone and he goes full throttle up to the ballot, and Kalonzo, because Kalonzo cannot support anyone, if you ask me, it will be suicidal because he's the senior most. So there's a possibility that if Fred insists, Kalonzo might go back to Uhuru Kenyatta, to William Ruto. And people, I understand people they don't resonate with the ideologies of Ruto that might give Ngilu certain leeway. Kalonzo is now supporting Ruto and Ngilu is behind Fred Matiang'i. Can you try to picture what will happen? I don't know whether Kambas will vote for Kalonzo if he's in a position and ditch Ruto and leave Ngilu, or they will say, okay, we are behind Ngilu because we don't like Kalonzo. It is going to be complicated. Fred Matiang'i's entry into Central throwing spanner in the works, because Rigathi wants, in fact, there's a possibility if the courts allow Rigathi to contest, some people close to him say that he's already consulting with a possibility of contesting, because in fact, if you look at the formation in that opposition, it is only Rigathi Gachagua who is doing his bit, exposing Kasongo, talking about things that people fear. That is the kind of politics that Raila used to play. Kenyans resonate well with abrasive politics. People are aggressive. Unasema Kasongo must go. Unajua hii ujasiri Rigathi yako nayo mpaka anasema ulichoma watu wetu wakiambwa. Wewe ndio ulifanya watu wakaungua. It's serious. Anamuita mwizi, land grabber, muuaji. I mean, I've never heard or seen someone who forces William Ruto like that. The other time was being asked by Obina that I heard that William Ruto slapped you. He's saying you can never try. If you slap me, tunaonana mundu humu. And he was saying that if or when William Ruto banged the table for him, he would bang it back because he says he was taught to be tough. So Wamunyoro and Matiang'i, if they don't align themselves properly, they're going to put their supporters under a lot of pressure, because people love Rigathi Gachagua, but Mount Kenya also speaks well of Matiang'i. So this is where the confusion is going to be. Let's say Rigathi agrees to support Matiang'i under the Jubilee candidate, under the Jubilee party, yet Jubilee has positioned itself as a competitor to Rigathi's party. So what is Rigathi going to do as they campaign? So it will be pale kwa urais patia Matiang'i, lakini ikianza governor huku fanya nini? Patia democracy for the citizens. And how is Matiang'i himself going to campaign? Ya kwamba pale juu mnipatie tu, but hizi zingine patieni Rigathi. And how is that going to be? Because if he's sponsored by Jubilee, Jubilee is going to expect Matiang'i to campaign for the Jubilee candidates in Central, in Mount Kenya. Yet if Rigathi also accepts the invitation to support Matiang'i, he will demand that I can only support Matiang'i, but these other candidates belong to me. It's not going to be very easy. So ladies and gentlemen, will Rigathi support Matiang'i? And if he does, how are they going to align themselves to the other positions? Will Raila begin any move to expel dissenting views from ODM, and how will that impact? Is there any repercussion for Wamuchomba in her move not to support Rigathi, whether negative or positive? And do you agree with the Rama that indeed all the parties that we have are tribal? Kindly share with me in the comment section.